And I walked past her cubicle and she was crying. And I said, "Why, are you okay?" And I'll never forget this. She wiped her tears away, and then she turned around with a huge grin like this. I went, "I'm great." And I remember thinking, well, you're obviously not. And I've never seen that type of reaction before, but I guess, I don't know, is that an American thing or is that just like a you thing? It's Sunday, so let's just have a little chat. Back in 2005, cast your minds back, unless you're under 20, I moved to America. I've since recently moved back, but I was there in New York for 15 to 17-ish years, I think it was, something like that. When I first moved there, the internet was not what it is now. It was completely different. So there was a lot of stuff going on in regards to communication that would be nowadays, I think, like with TikTok and all that sort of stuff, and the English and the Americans conversing the way they do, it's different. But back then there was just like, we saw Hollywood, so we knew all the American words. And what I soon found out when I went to America was that they didn't understand any of my words, the English words. So, you know, you've got, I think the funniest one was jumper, right? Because jumper is the term used for an item which is similar to a sweater, right? Like a knitted one or whatever. But whenever I first referred to jumper, a lot of people would kind of like nod their heads thinking they understood, but they thought I was talking about a jumpsuit, which was which was weird. But like day one when I got there, I stayed in the hotel and I went downstairs. There was a problem in my room. I can't remember what it was. And the woman was listening to me, and then she said, "Listen, I think we have a problem with a language barrier problem," basically, which shocked me. I was like, to me, I was just thinking, well, I speak English, you speak English, what's the problem? But looking back, there was a couple of issues. One was that she wasn't understanding some of the words I was using, and she was struggling with the way that I pronounced and mumbled. So it sounded hard for her to catch up. A bit like some of the accents in the UK. You can listen to and you just think, what are they saying? And then you gradually, when you listen closely, you can sort of make out what they're saying. So I had to learn to articulate more, and I had to learn to replace all of the words that I knew with American words, you know. So it'd be apartment instead of lift, it would be sweater instead of jumper, it'd be sneakers instead of trainers, it would be whatever, right? And a lot of the time this would lead to some really confusing conversations if I used the wrong word. But like in general, I'm just going to tell a few stories because like there's millions, but like just some that are at the top of my head. One of the things when I first went to the pub with some American friends, they were like, "Oh, let's get the shots in, let's do this, let's do that, let's get this drink. It's called," you know what, I'm probably not going to say the whole thing because my last video got suppressed because of what I was talking about. But it was called an Irish car BOMB. And I actually lived through those times when there was a lot going on in the UK, and those things were real. And I remember thinking, what the hell is this? How are you ordering this? This is like crazy disrespectful. And it was like 5 years after 9/11. So I was like, bro, what would you do if I ordered a 9/11? You know, it was a really, some of these things were like quite shocking to me. The other thing that was quite shocking to me was like the sentence "my bad," which now I think is used in the UK all the time apparently. But back then it wasn't. Like I remember going there and people would be like, "My bad." Like, you what? That's the worst sentence construction I've ever heard in my life. What are you on about? My bad, my bad. And then like all of this stuff, like genuinely all of this stuff, after a few weeks I'd be saying it myself. or I'd be at the bar ordering that drink. In fact, it was a really good drink, so I used to order it all the time. There was also this, wherever you went, people would say, "Hey, how are you?" And sometimes I'd walk into a shop and someone would go, "Hey, how are you?" And I, as an Englishman, I would tell them. And they would just look at me like I was crazy. So it'd be like, "Hey, how are you?" And I'd be like, "Well, I'm all right, but da 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 da." And they would like look at me really confused and scared, like why is he answering? All I'm doing is saying hello. So I assume that how are you? Hey, how are you? Was usually you just respond by saying, "Hey, how are you?" But then in the UK, we used to, we still do, but you say, "All right," all right, yeah, same thing, right? But when I said it to American people, I would say, "All right," they would go, "What? Why? What do I? Is something on my face, or like, did I do something wrong? Like, why wouldn't I look all right? What's going on? Why aren't I all right?" So it was, yeah, that was another one which, I always thought was like quite funny. There was, and like culturally, there's so many other things that were quite interesting. So like when I started working, it was in this big building, and it was like, it was 2005, this was before the crash, but basically everybody had a job. Like it was like there was a job for everyone in New York. It was like like I came from a building in from a building in London, same company, which had like one guy who was like the handyman who did everything, whereas this place had like all these specialists, like there was all these million, bigger building, like no doubt, but like there'd be a guy over here like polishing the paintings or whatever, and one cleaning the floors and all this sort of stuff, and it just had that vibe, like every single person has like this little intricate job, like there was a job for literally everyone and anyone. One of the things I remember being there on my first day at work was there was a junior girl who was on my team, but it was my first day or whatever, and I walked past her cubicle and she was crying, and I said, "Why, are you okay?" And I'll never forget this. She wiped her tears away, and then she turned around with a huge grin like this. I went, "I'm great." And I remember thinking, well, you're obviously not. And I've never seen that type of reaction before, but I guess, I don't know, is that an American thing, or is that just like a you thing? I don't know. That was also the other thing, is trying to pass out like what's American and what's an individual person thing. But on the whole, I found like New York to be, compared to London, I found it to be like really, actually very welcoming, and the people were very nice. And even though they were like, I didn't mind them because they were kind of grouchy as well, but like nice and grouchy. And their favorite thing in New York was being asked for directions. Like you ask for directions, and those guys are just want to prove who's the one who knows their city best. I think I eventually became one of those people, actually, probably. The other thing I really enjoyed was there was for me at least, I felt there was a difference in the way people went about organising social events. So in England, I always felt like people were sort of whispering to each other, "We're going to go for a drink, but don't tell so-and-so and so-and-so." So there was like an exclusion and a clique and all that stuff. And whereas in New York, it just seemed to be like, we're going to go for a drink. Whoever wants to come. And it didn't really matter whether that person was weird or not. I don't know, maybe it's just like the people that I was with, but like they didn't really care if people were a bit different or a bit loud or whatever. Actually, talking about that, that's another one. Talking in lifts. So that was one where I don't know if this still exists in the UK or not, because I've not been to the city for a while. But like, basically, when you get into a lift, like, or maybe the tube or whatever, it's not so much the. It's not. It's more to do. It's more to do with bothering people, like speaking loudly in a confined space where they can't escape, is like gonna bother them, right? At least that's how I remember it. Whereas in America, people just walk into lifts and they're just talking, they're talking loudly and they're having conversations, and then they'll start laughing, and then you'll be listening and you'll start laughing, you'll join in the conversation. It's kind of fun. It just is what it is. And I remember just when you live somewhere and when you move somewhere, you just start taking on this kind of vibe that everybody else has got, and you just get on with it. So yeah, those are some of the sort of first things that were going on when differences that I felt when I moved there. But I'm sure you probably have some. If you want to ask me questions, by all means do that down in the comments. Yeah, it was 2005 and I stayed there till end of 2021, I think, something like that. I did visit all over the country and had various road trips and all that sort of stuff, and business and what have you. Anyway, in regards to my journey, which some of you know about, I am making a promise to go for a run tomorrow. I don't care how far that run is. It could be a short run. It just has to happen. Get back into a groove of consistency. And also I will apply for at least 3 jobs. So that's my promise for tomorrow, and I will see you tomorrow. Have a good Sunday.